Hello and welcome to part 2 of Nature's Brushstrokes. So if you haven't checked out part 1, then you need to go back and watch that one. And I am so pleased that you are here. My name is Cate Field. I'm an artist, teacher and speaker, passionate about helping people find their creative spirit and, once you've found it, to develop it. And in this course we are really focusing on the natural world and the natural world around where you live. Because I think this is really important. This is what's going to make your work really, really personal. So in part 1, we were looking at the sea, and in part 2, we are going to be exploring the forest and the woodland. Because on the forest floor, we can find all sorts of amazing things. So we're going to be looking at the leaves and the twigs, the foliage, and we're going to be looking at toadstools and mushrooms and pine cones and acorns and all of those sorts of things. And it's about kind of being really observant about what is there on our doorsteps. So get all your things together and let's go. So I've come to quite a remote woodland near to where I live, and it's absolutely gorgeous. There's nobody around at the moment. The sun is shining through, and just looking around without even thinking about it, there's some interesting bark and twigs. And because it's the autumn, I've got lots of dried leaves these are from the birch tree just above me, and it's just lovely. So I'm going to find some twigs, some more leaves, some sort of interesting bits and pieces. There are some oak trees just over there, so I'm hoping to find some acorns, and I think over that way are some pine trees, so I might find some pine cones as well. And this is what I want to encourage you to do, is to get outside. And today, although it's sunny, it's cold. So I am a bit wrapped up. Where you are might be blazing hot. But it's on days like this that I absolutely love walking in the countryside, and I know that all around me I will find something interesting for this tutorial and for this study and my personal journey in the forest. So as in part 1, we're going to be using watercolours. I'm going to use the pans, and I might use the tubes as well. You use whatever you have. And I'm going to be using a variety of different types of paper as well. I've got some card, sort of postcard type paper, some watercolour paper, and I thought I'd make a little book as well. And this is wallpaper lining paper, and I've just made a little booklet here. It's a little flip book. I use these quite a lot. I think they're really nice to kind of keep things quite succinct. If you would like to know how to make one of these, I have a full tutorial on it, because I love them very much. And the other thing is all my lovely bits that I found. And I've taken photographs of some things as well, especially the toadstools and the mushrooms, and a few other bits and pieces that I also found. So you're going to need a variety of brushes, using a soft brush. I will put a link to all of the materials that I use. Brushes, I really do like the Daleroni ones. They come into a very nice point, but I've also got some flat ones. Again, this is a flat wash, again by Daleroni. But you use whatever you like, whatever works for you. Water spray, and let's get going. Now, I encourage all of my students to do several things all at the same time, because we have to leave things to dry. So I am just opening out my little book. Just tie that bit up there, because what I want to do is just lift that up a bit like that, is to do something that will be the back cover and I want to leave that to dry so that I can then do some illustrations on it a little bit later, but I will need to leave that to dry. And I really like doing a colour wash. It's a great way to break up a space, especially if you're feeling a little bit intimidated by the background, the white background or the cream background. I'm going to spray some water onto my paints just to make them wet on both lots, because I'm going to be using both. And I'm going to use my round brush. I'm going to put some water down. And what we're going to do is a mixture of ochre and browns. Let's just add there we go, a little bit more water on that one. And I'm just going to put some dabs, just using my brush. Again, very, very loose, very light. Always come back to it. Got my sponge here as well, which again can create rather a nice texture. We'll be using textures a bit later on. So just have some fun, play with this. We're going to cover the whole of this background. And just sort of adding a few other little colours in there. Just pick up a little bit of the green. Just going to dab that. Use the brush as well. And just to kind of break up that space. I'm going to leave that to dry, and then I'm going to go on to the little postcards. Let's just put that one over there. Let's come back down like that. There we go. So what we're going to do is to look at the toadstools in the first instant. So I'm going to be working from photographs rather than picking them and bringing them into the house. So I am just going to look at the shapes and just see what I could do with these. And the idea is that we're just going to be looking at the shapes and at the colours, and we've got this really sort of pale grey, and I'm going to start off by using ochre and blue mixed together. This is the cobalt blue, and it will sort of turn into this sort of grey green, which I really like. And I'm going to draw with my paintbrush, and I would encourage you to do this as well. If this is too scary, then you can use a pencil, but remember, with pencil, the pencil mark will show. You won't be able to cover this up. So I've just put in a bit of an outline of the shape, and then I'm adding a lot of water. So I'm breaking down that edge. I haven't done a background on this one. I've kind of kept it plain, and I might do something a little bit later. But this is just like the first little study. Just putting in that bit like that, and then the stalk comes down like that. Just putting in the lines, and we can put in more details when it's dry. You can't overpaint very much when you're using watercolor. Let's just putting in another one here. Again, just sort of getting that lovely soft shape. Lots of water. And we can put in some details a little bit later. Let's put in them. I love the way that they just kind of appear all of a sudden, don't they? There we go. I'm just going to put in a little bit of dark colour there. I'm just going to pick up a little bit more brown because I think I'm going to just do some brown here. That's just this first little study. And when I'm looking at the image, I can see that it's sort of darker at the top, and then obviously we've got shadow. So I'm just thinking I'm just going to add a little bit of dark brown to that grey green. Just a little bit like that. And then we can just start to put in some of the lines, just very, very lightly. Like this. You can see that paint is still wet. But we get that lovely kind of feathery effect. Like this. And I was thinking now of which way the light is falling, and I think the shadow is going to be on this side. So we're going to have this side a little bit darker. Just putting it like that. Disperse. And let's just put in some darker lines over this way. And a little bit more on that one as well. And then we can have shadow falling there. I just put a bit of water in the background, pick up a tiny, tiny bit of paint. So it just sort of leaks out just a little bit. And I think that can look quite delicate, which is really what I wanted. And I'm going to leave that one to dry and go on to the next one. And I'm going to do the same thing on another bit of card. Now these I might cut out and put into my little book. I might do that. And again, we can just work however we want. There are not many rules. Yeah, and I really do encourage people to experiment, to try, to play. So I'm now looking at these ones with a different shape, and these are quite close together. So again, I'm putting in a bit of an outline first. This one's a little bit more brown, with a kind of touch of orange. Just popping the orange into it like that. And I love these ones because the stalks kind of bend round, which I think are really gorgeous and quirky. And you can totally see why toadstools and mushrooms feature in fairy tales, can't you? Just do have a bit of a magical quality about them. Now, of course, this one it's quite realistic study, and I'm going to show you a bit later on how we can take this idea and turn it into more of like an illustration of in sort of a fairy tale type thing. Just gives you something else that you could do. Putting those on there, a little bit of texture, And again, this stalk is coming from behind that one. And get that sort of fleshy feel. And that sort of feathery bit that just looks so interesting. It's again just sort of very, very delicate. Again, I'm going to leave that one to dry, and then I'll put some more details on that. Now this is the front of my book. It's not quite dry, but it's dry enough. And I liked that little toadstool I did earlier, so I'm going to do kind of another little study. I'm not using very much water, so the pigment is stronger. Just sort of bring the idea that we're looking up into it. And with your watercolour studies, you can always add ink and acrylic pen and things like that. I'm just going to stick to watercolour for this course. But what I really do want to encourage is for you to try out different things, and the skills that you learn in this course, this tutorial, you can then take and do something else with them. Yeah, it's the sort of thing that I love, and it's why I love teaching so much. I think I love seeing how my students will take an idea and do something different with it. It makes me very happy. So I'm just going to do like little quirky toadstools on this cover, and then I'll go over later and do with a little bit more detail. So the next thing we're going to do is to look at some of these dried leaves. Now I love the way that leaves curl when they dry. I think that it's absolutely fascinating, but they can look a little bit complicated. So we're going to start off with this one, and I'm going to do a series on this just piece of watercolour paper. And the first thing I'm going to do is to think about what colours I want to use. So I'm going to make up a brown. I'm going to mix green with ochre, like that. And then I'm just going to pick up a little bit of the red and then a bit of orange. I'm going to see that kind of gives me a nice kind of rusty brown that will be a good starting point. And I do like to add a little bit of blue just so I get a contrast, just like that. So looking at the leaf, and I would encourage you to have a leaf in front of you when you're doing a study. And we're going to start by putting in that centre vein. So I'm just going to put in the centre. That's going to be the stalk, and that is like the tip. And that gives us a feel for where everything is. and we don't have to do it exactly. Just going to add a little bit more water to that. But it does mean that we can really have an understanding of what is happening with our leaf. So this is that bottom bit. And then we have kind of like a wiggly line that comes up. We'll do that bit in a minute. And this bit is coming up over like that, and then curling up to there. So we have this kind of flow of the leaf. And I might add a little bit of ochre directly onto there. So, yeah, it still starts off quite messy. So please don't worry about that. All art goes through a messy stage. I'm just going to pop that over like this, and yeah, you'll see how it all comes together in a moment. So this, again, this line is going to come out this way. We're floating it down, and then we pick up the other bit of the leaf. And then I'm just going to follow the contours of the leaf as it curls round like this and picks up that centre vein. Again, it will still look a little bit messy at this stage, and that's okay. Just going to do that. This. Add a little bit more water, I think. Just putting it up over there. Again, just looks very messy, doesn't really look like much of a leaf at the moment, but it will. So while that's drying, I'm going to move to another bit of the paper. And let's pick up this little one. You see, it's really screwed up, isn't it? Let's have a look and see what we can do with this. So again, I'm really thinking about where is that center line, because that's going to give me my starting point. And it's going to be a bit like that. And we have this bit coming up like there. Another bit coming round. And this bit curling right over like that. And then we've got these gorgeous ridges. And I love these. This is where it all gets rather lovely. Pull that one like that. And again, it's won't look quite right yet, but it will. Bring that line up there. Slightly rusty colour. Again, just sort of seeing where the patterns go, and the dark bits and the light bits. Just putting those in like that. Just put a little bit more water. And I'm going to leave that one to dry as well. So while I'm leaving that one to dry, I thought we'd have a look at my acorns. So just going to do it on a little piece, and I might use this as a motif in a journal, and to sort of mix some browns. Just pop this here to show you. Just mixing up brown from the palette with a little bit of green again, and I'm going to use my brush to draw, and I'm just going to start off with the just the little cup
Again, don't sort of worry too much about getting it absolutely accurate. So we're just sort of trying an idea with this one. Let's just sort of bring that down a bit like that. Just going to add some water to that. Quite liking that colour, that sort of mossy type colour. And then the acorn nut part, it's quite a bit of red and orange in that, so I'm just make that a little bit more orange. Bring it up like this, get that lovely shape. So a little bit more brown, I think. But try things out, and you don't be afraid to experiment. Just get that just a little. It doesn't matter if the water runs. It just really doesn't matter at all. And then I was going to do another one over this way. It's lying on its side. Again, I can put in some details a bit later. Just put those here, and I might put something in the background. We're just really looking at the shape, gorgeous shape, and that kind of the texture. Like that. It was quite funny in the woods actually, because I did gather up a few acorns. There weren't that many, and I thought that's strange. There's quite a lot of oak trees. And then as I was just sitting down and I was very, very still, there were about 4 squirrels appear. I thought, that's where the acorns have gone then. The squirrels have started to store them for their winter snacks, so that's quite sweet. So again, just sort of thinking about how they kind of fit together with these little cups. And again, it's interesting, isn't it, that these sort of woodland plants often feature in fairy tales. Like the toadstools and the mushrooms. So putting that in there. This needs a little bit more green, I think, in that bit. And of course, they're not all exactly the same colour, are they? And just put that bit on there like that. And we can sort of add bits to it as it dries a little bit more. I'll leave that one to dry. So while we're leaving that one to dry, I thought I'd go back to this toadstool here, and I'm just going to add a little bit of detail, not very much, just a few kind of streaks of brown. I quite liked that texture at the top. I'm just using the tip of my brush just to get those little marks there. Just putting a little bit here, just gives it just a little bit of definition. I don't want very much. And when you're doing this sort of thing, if you think, oh no, I've done that, is just too much, just get some water, and then you can just move it about a little bit like that. Now this bit underneath needs to be a bit darker, So again, I'm just going to add a little bit underneath like that, and then I'm just going to do the same for this one. Just little bits of texture, just as I'm starting to sort of build up the little details like this. I didn't see any of the red spotty ones today. I have in the past, but not when I was out earlier. So yeah, just in those again, a little bit, break up the background just a little bit, like that. So I've started to put together some thoughts into a book. I had to make a new book because the one I made earlier, I managed to spill water all over it, and it's now drying out in the airing cupboard. So it's very, very silly. Oh dear. But never mind, these things happen. So I've made this just a similar sort of book. I've got some of my images here. I had a pine cone, and I've got some sort of illustrations as well that I will have a look at. But I really want to focus on the acorns and the pine cones and the toadstools. So as you see, I've just started to put a few ideas into the book. And this is where I think I might put a few of these. And this is what I'd like you to do, is take some of your ideas and your thoughts, and you could cut out some of these, put them into your book, write some notes. You could cut out some photographs that you've taken and put those in as well. Now I'm going to show you how I do a layout where I use the references of my photos plus my illustrations plus some writing. So I've started to lay out my page. Cut out some of those pieces. This one I mounted onto some black card. I've put in some of the photos. Let's just open that one up. So I've got my references and my little sketches and illustrations, and I've just started to put together an idea here, which I thought I would work on with you, just as we kind of wrap this up, because I'm thinking by now that you have got lots of ideas. And so I thought I would do this little woodland scene. I just sort of sketched it out with a pencil, and I thought, well, I will go over it with a fine liner pen, or you could use a biro, just a little bit. And then I thought what I'm going to do is to get my paints and just do a very light little watercolour. Now the fine liner pen that I've used here is water soluble, so because I wanted to have that kind of dusty look as well, because I thought that could be quite fun. And then I'm just going to add just a little bit of colour, so picking up some of the fine liner. Obviously if you're using biro you won't get this effect, but that could be just as good. So again, as always, it's not that one is right and one is wrong, it's about the different sorts of effects that you can get. I'm just popping these little leaves. I was kind of imagining that was an oak leaf actually. Again, I'm just using quite neutral colours, and then I'll write a little poem, I think, or just some words. but also these sorts of things will give me ideas for future illustrations, for paintings, and this is really what I want to encourage you to think about, is when you put this into the book, you've got the book itself is your art, and it's gorgeous. It'd be absolutely lovely. I'm just sort of, these are little pine cones. And I did find some larch cones on my walk as well, which were beautiful. So putting in a few, just a few days, very wet. Like this, just sort of imagine the forest. So another thing that you could do would be to perhaps create a journal for all the seasons. So you could have your woodland in spring, summer, autumn and winter. That would be a really nice exercise to do. It'd be a lovely sketchbook. Then you can just kind of dip into it when you want to. Just put a little bit in there. And then I'm going to go in for a bit of orange as if it's about to turn. I'm going to spray into my paint here. Just get that kind of orangey brown. And on the ground as well. So that one is painted directly into the sketchbook, and now I've got this one here. I can open up that page and I can paint directly into the book, or I could do on a separate page. Let's just kind of have a bit of a study of this gorgeous shape. Again, I'm not drawing with a pencil. I'm just going straight in with and I'm going to keep it very, very light. That's a bit of water on there, and now don't be afraid to paint directly in. Remember, this is your book. You use it however you want. Let's go over to that page there. Just kind of, I want to really get the delicate aspect of these amazing fungi. Putting this directly onto the wet, so you can see that it will disperse. But you could try the other techniques as well. Try sort of onto the dry, and see whether you like that. Or you could try both. Just bringing those in like that, and then I've got, on the outside, it's quite dark, isn't it? Let's bring a bit of shadow onto there. Like that, just sort of picking up some of those dots. And when it's completely dry, I might go in for just a little bit more detail. So as we come to the end of this little journey into the forest, I'll just show you some of the things that I've done, and I'll be working through them a little bit more, perhaps write some more, do some more sketches, some doodles, and then some of these I might take and develop a bit further, and I'm just going to enjoy the process. Just like together.
Well, I really hope you've enjoyed part 2 of Nature's Brushstrokes, the forest, and that you've got lots of ideas and your imagination is flowing. And I really hope that you are ready for part 3, when we will explore the sky. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.